Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go. Hey, are you on the hunt for someone or something specific in our industry? Maybe you need a sale graphic built for a horse you're selling. Maybe you're looking for a bookkeeper who understands farm and ranch finances. Maybe you need a promo video built for your company, a website refresh, a business consultant, whatever it may be. You can find all of those and a whole lot more inside of the West's directory. It's the only place online where you can connect with freelancers and contractors who are all based in the agriculture and Western industries. You don't have to explain the nitty-gritty details of our industry because they already understand it. You can search by category, location, type of program they need to work in. Any way you can think of needing to search and finding somebody, you can do it. I promise life just got a little easier. To get started, you can go to ofthewest.co/directory. Today, we are back for another episode of Leaders of the West. And today is a little bit different than normal. We have Sarah Wilson of the West's Director of Marketing on, and we're going to do a little Q&A, but instead of these being questions that you guys have asked us to answer, Sarah came up with questions that she said that she has always wanted to ask me, or in our conversations has never necessarily heard me talk about or gotten the answer to. So Sarah put together a list of questions, and the roles are going to be reversed today. So Sarah is going to be the one who's interviewing me. She's going to be leading this episode. And then I guess I'm going to be the guest. Is that how this is going to work?
I think so. How do you feel being a guest on your own show?
I feel like I'm in the hot seat for sure, but I'm excited just because I know how close that you and I have gotten over the last few years of you working here. And I'm excited to hear your questions because I feel like I talk all the time and I've talked about everything in my life. And we do have such a great relationship to where you do know just about everything there is to know about me, but obviously you don't. That's why these questions have been developed. So I don't know what these questions are going to be, you guys. I'm just as surprised as you are. So Sarah, with that, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. Thanks for having me and letting me do this today. So just as a little bit of a genesis to these questions in this episode. So like Jessie said, we've gotten pretty close in the last 3 years of me working here, and we talk often and we have tons of conversations, whether they are personal or professional. And some of these topics that I'm going to bring up today, because I'm going to keep it a little casual, keep it more conversational. But some of these topics are things that I either haven't heard Jessie, we haven't had in-depth discussions about, or I've heard her say things that I feel like the listeners would really enjoy hearing and are great pieces of advice. So with that being said, I'll kind of jump right into it. But kind of the first area where I want to spend time is talking about trust, because as a leader, I believe a big piece of being successful and having a successful company and organization is trust. And whether that's trusting those around you, giving up maybe a certain amount of control, and truly working as a team. But I think a lot of leaders really struggle to give trust, and whether it's because they're naturally micromanagers and have that mindset of, well, it's easier if I do it because I know it'll get done right, or I know it'll get done quicker or save me time, or they've been burned in the past, whether they've been surrounded by, untrustworthy people personally or professionally. I feel like when they act on those feelings, then that then trickles down to the entire team. And then the team not feeling trusted, trusted members of the organization, and it can create a bit of a toxic work environment. So, Jessie, in our conversations that we've had, and to the listeners, I'm not putting Jessie, I'm not throwing pie in her face right now, but she is a self-admitted micromanager. She's type A and she likes to be in control. She's mentioned that. I think she's mentioned that even here on the podcast before. And we've had conversations around this a lot. But as a team member of Jessie's, I feel very trusted by her, you. I feel like a team member, you often, are not just an employee, but you really want to feel like a team member. So has that like trusting characteristic or, has that just become natural to you, or have you had to develop this characteristic in yourself?
Oh, okay. So basically what you're saying is I say I'm a micromanager, but you as an employee of mine, you're saying I'm not a micromanager.
I do not believe that you are.
Oh, okay. Well, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. I feel like I've gotten a gold star. Okay. So this is something that I've really had to work on developing. And again, I've talked about this before a little bit, but as far as like who I am naturally, I am somebody I'm a perfectionist. I love to be in control. It's not that I don't trust people, but I like to do things my way and I like to ensure that they're done. And, I have been burned in the past as far as like relying on people. I blame school and those group projects where you had a team of people and half the people didn't show up and do their work. And so then you're left with the pieces. I was never going to allow myself to get in that situation. Like I've learned my lesson on numerous times.
I think those have scarred everyone.
Yeah, I was always the person that ended up being in charge. And again, that's just kind of naturally who I am. But that being said, I have been around people who micromanage. And I will tell you that as an employee or as a family member or, whatever that relationship is, it's really hard to be around people who micromanage. And because I'm somebody who's very introspective, I see those qualities within me and I don't want to amplify them. I want to change into the leader that I want to be. And I don't want to be a micromanager. I think I've given this example before, but it's kind of like loading the dishwasher when you have a spouse. So I have a certain way of loading the dishwasher and Justin has a certain way of loading the dishwasher. And I don't want to stereotype our relationship by any means, but because I'm the woman of the house, like I'm usually the one who's unloading the dishwasher. Justin is also highly active in all of those roles though. So I don't want to stereotype, but I can tell when I open the dishwasher and Justin has loaded it. And it's not the way that I would do it. So I could rag on him and say, hey, you're not loading the dishwasher, right? But if I do that and I belittle him to where he thinks like, man, she doesn't even appreciate the fact that I'm putting these dishes in the dishwasher for, I'm just going to leave him next to the sink and I'm going to let her do it. So what do I want more? Do I want my spouse to help me loading the dishwasher so that we get clean dishes? Or do I want to be the one in charge of always loading the dishwasher so that I can say that it's done, quote unquote, correctly? At the end of the day, in my mind, the whole point of putting dishes in the dishwasher is so that they're getting clean. So as long as the outcome is they are getting clean, it doesn't necessarily matter if I load the dishwasher or if Justin does it or if he's doing it the way I want him to do it, because again, it shouldn't necessarily be about how the dishwasher is loaded. It's the end result of, are the dishes clean? So yeah, if let's say Justin is putting the cups right side up and they end up with a bunch of water in them, then no, they're not getting clean, right? So things like that, yes, it's obviously worth mentioning, but if the cups are in a different order than I would put them in and the plates face the wrong way in my mind, does it really matter? No, because at the end of the day, again, I'm working towards the result of clean dishes. So taking that out of the example of loading the dishwasher and using that in other examples in life, business, whatever it may be, I really focus on the end result. Is the end result going to live up to my expectation, regardless of how it's done? If you're doing it one way, a different way that I would do it, or vice versa, as long as the end result is at my expectation or higher than my expectation, it really doesn't matter how it's done. And so because of that, I have really, really had to work at developing that quality of not being a micromanager, because I'm a big believer in the idea that I want to treat people as how I want to be treated. And I don't want to be micromanaged, because if you are, then chances are you're going to have low performance and you're going to be put in that toxic environment that you mentioned earlier. And you're going to want to go somewhere else, or you're going to start half-assing it. And that is none of what I want to be doing. And I definitely don't want my employees to be doing that either. And not even employees, but, people in relationships that I am with, or family members, friendships, like that is one of those things. And I know I've talked about this a lot too, but it doesn't necessarily matter if it is a business or personal. Honestly, the fibers of all of that is the same. So going back to another reason as to why I'm not a micromanager is I trust myself to hire the right people. If I'm hiring somebody to do it, it's because I believe somebody else can do the job better than me. So if I'm hiring that person, then I need to let them do their job. And I trust myself as a leader to hire the right people. That is something that I really pride myself on is I'm a pretty dang good judge of character. It is very rare that somebody like gets past me in that. I kind of like, I guess I have like a little spidey sense in that way. And so I know when I hire somebody like you are beyond talented. You are the person who is going to come in and be able to do all of the things that I can't do. So if I have hired you to do that, then I need to let it go and let you do your job. Because if I try to control you or if I try to be so involved in the process, I'm not actually helping myself because the whole point of hiring you was so that I didn't have to do it or it could be done better than I would. And two, I'm not giving you the opportunity to learn to then, be a better employee or, have stronger skills. And again, it really goes back to being introspective in my mind, being able to put trust in people, being able to learn from your past experiences and realize that the end result is what you're working towards. The details, as long as they get done correctly, it doesn't necessarily matter how they get done.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think going back to you mentioning like the growth of an employee, part of a job of a leader is to develop those under them. And I think that by giving them trust to do their jobs and to do, different things and entrusting them with that, it's only helping you grow your employees who then are going to help grow your company.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and even if you're somebody who, let's say that you are a stay-at-home mom or, you work on your operation and you don't necessarily have employees, think of it as raising your kids, right? It is so much easier if I just do things for my kids because it takes them forever. They make messes. They do things wrong. But that being said, my job as a parent is to teach my children. It's to equip them with the skills so that they can be confident in their abilities, they can learn new things, and they can go out and do it without me. And yes, it might be nice if you are, helping your kids do things when they're in this early stage, but you can't be doing your child's laundry when they're 25 and 35 and 45. And there are those parents out there, right? So I always look at it on that side of things. It's just like leadership. Like you have to be equipping people with the skills to teach them so that they can learn on their own, they can make their own decisions, and you're equipping them with the abilities to go out and be successful in life.
Oh, yeah. So what are your thoughts on that saying of like, trust is earned, not given? Because I feel like you should kind of trust somebody initially until they do something to break that trust, no?
Yes. Okay. So this is I don't know that I've ever actually like verbally talked about this before, but I am somebody who I do trust everybody to an extent. Let's say that trust is 100% thing. I'm going to give everybody about 60% of my trust. And then if I give you that trust, and if you make me feel like you've broken that trust, then the next time around, I'm not going to give you 60% trust. I'm probably going to give you 40% trust. And if we continue to go through this situation, you're going to whittle yourself down to 30% and 10%, and then no trust at all. But that being said, if I give you 60% of my trust and then you go above and beyond and you blow me out of the water, next time that we have some kind of, relationship or whatever it is, I'm going to probably give you 80% of my trust. And I'm going to keep giving you 80%. And then you're going to wow me even more. And then I'm going to give 100. And I guess why I use that example is I do trust everybody, but at the same time, I'm not just willy-nilly going to give everybody 100% of my full trust. Like I reserve that for my very trusted, my close circle of friends or family, those 4 quarters that I keep in my life, because I think that it's more important to have 4 quarters than 100 pennies as far as friendship goes. Like I have surrounded myself with an amazing group of people who I trust with 200%, if you will. So I'm not going to give everybody that same level of trust. But at the same time, I do think that when you're walking into a situation, you have to give if you want to receive.
Oh, yeah. I've never heard it verbalized in that way, but that's the perfect example because obviously you want to give trust to people, but there is a fine line of, okay, do you naively trust them completely or do you have them gain a little bit of trust as you go?
And maybe if somebody is kind of having a hard time with the percentages, think about it in the terms of money. If somebody's going to come to you and they're like, hey, I'm an investment banker and you have $100,000 to invest. If you've never worked with them before, are you going to give them the full $100,000? Or are you maybe going to start with 5,000 and see how they do with it? And then, okay, you proved you do know what you're doing. I'm going to give you a little more and a little more and a little more. Like, I highly doubt you're just going to fork over your $100,000 to somebody who you've never met before and they just tell you that they're an investment banker and that they know what they're doing. But at the same time, you have to trust them because if you don't trust them, then they're never going to be able to prove to you that they do know what they're doing. So it's a very fine line there. But yes, I do give trust to everybody, but I reserve that full amount for people who have absolutely earned it.
You always have the best analogies for explaining things. I swear it makes it so easy to like grasp onto these ideas because your analogies are so good.
I pride myself on that.
Okay, so on the flip side, as an entrepreneur, I feel like you have to have a lot of trust in yourself. So, like, you are taking a gamble on something and you have to believe in yourself that this venture is going to work out, right? So, when you and Justin decided to embark on creating and launching Of the West, how did you either reinforce that trust within yourself or create that trust within yourself?
Ooh, I like this. Okay, so I'm always going to bet 100% on me. And that's just who I am, right? Because I know that if I am committed to something, I am going to see it through. There's nobody else that I'm going to put my trust in more than in myself and my own abilities. And I think that that's something that's very important. And I think that that's also something that you really have to work towards. But as far as the idea of the West, and I'm sure our listeners have probably heard this, the idea came to me in March and I didn't truly act on it until June. It took me a couple of months of sitting with the idea and I just couldn't get it out of my head. And part of that reason was I knew that because agriculture is so crucial to our existence and our industries are so important, not only on the family side of what we do, but in feeding a growing population, that we needed to do it and do it right. But I also didn't think that it was being done correctly as it was. So who better to do it than me? Because again, I put full trust in myself. I know that I'm going to get the job done. So that being said, it definitely took me a while to, I don't want to say come to terms with the idea because that kind of sounds negative, right? But just to really say like, okay, we're going all in. We're really going to do this and we're going to do it right. But that being said, like, that's just getting in the water. Now you have to start swimming. And life has presented me on the entrepreneurial journey with so many things that I didn't necessarily think I was ready for. Or man, like, do I really know what I'm doing? But the only way that you're ever going to get better and to grow is if you do it, right? You have to take those calculated risks and you have to believe in yourself and you have to know that, okay, I might not know what I'm doing now, but I'm going to enter into this and I'm going to figure it out because if anybody can do it, it's me. And so I have led my life with that kind of mission of if anybody can do it, it's me. And that's definitely how I've gotten to where I am, but it's something that is ever growing. It's just like a muscle. You have to continue to work it and there's no way that you're ever going to outgrow it. But that's definitely a big part of how I've gotten to where I am is belief in myself.
That I think will speak to so many people, including myself. I think it's so easy to doubt yourself. Like you're the easiest person to doubt, especially when it comes to creating something or doing something big or dreaming big. So just constantly reminding yourself about that and like having that belief in yourself is huge.
Well, and I will say, I don't want to fool people into thinking that like I've never had imposter syndrome or I've never thought, man, am I really the best person to be doing this? Because I totally have had those thoughts or those questions. But I know that if I want to continue to succeed and to continue to grow and be better and be stronger, I have to put myself in uncomfortable situations and I have to, figure things out. It's not that I'm afraid of failure. I am afraid of not finding the answer. So I'm going to work to find the answer, not allow myself to stop because I'm worried about failure.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's such a core piece, I think, to most of these Leaders of the West episodes and like the guests that we've had on. Everyone has said that Yeah, failure is obviously an option and it's going to happen, but you can't scare yourself out of doing something because you're afraid of failing.
No, absolutely not. And I cannot stress enough the amount of things I've learned from failure. Like there is a good and a bad in every situation. And if you are somebody who's able to take that good or the silver lining of things and, flip the script and use that to propel you forward, you're going to be so much further ahead.
Perspective is huge. So, do you have any maybe leadership influences or mentors who have either helped you just continue to develop that trust within yourself, or were you able to kind of model your trust as a leader from anyone else that you've seen in your career journey?
Oh, yes. Mentorship is huge and something that I have a lot of in my life, and I'm very thankful for that. But it's also something that I work really hard to curate. It's not like I haven't just had great people fall into my lap. I have worked really hard to be around them, or maybe it's somebody that I don't personally know, but I still, I listen to them via podcasts or books or, trainings, courses, things of that nature. And I will say that I probably have an equal amount of both mentors I know personally, and then mentors they don't know who the heck I am. And that's okay because I have learned just as much from them as I have from the people who I do have those, trusted, genuine relationships with. I cannot stress to you guys enough the importance of finding both, because you do need to have that like literal kind of, I don't want to say shoulder to cry on by any means, but the person that you can go to when things feel like they're at rock bottom and you're like, hey, I need some advice here. It's the person who you have their number or you have their email address and you can physically reach out to them when needed. And I have a lot of those in my life and I am very, very thankful for those. And then it's also really important to surround yourself with those people that maybe more of the like aspirational type people, right? They're not in your wheelhouse or where you're at now, but they are where you want to be in the future. They have done it ahead of you. They have proven that it can be done. They have the path on how they got there and they're sharing that path. And so I think of, I really look up to Chris and Lori Harder. I listen to their podcast. I have done a Chris Harder mastermind before. I think that they do a really great job at, being real in their entrepreneurial and business journeys. And they're also really great teachers, which I think is important. The other thing that I will say about that is I really compartmentalize people. If there are certain people who are good at one thing, that's the thing that I focus on. And I don't necessarily worry about those other pieces because I'm kind of looking for these little pieces that I want to better myself in. So maybe that's leadership. So maybe I go to somebody specifically for leadership. Maybe I go to somebody else specifically for this or this. Like my dad's a mentor in my life, but I don't necessarily go to him when it comes to asking him questions about how to build an online business because the man doesn't even have an email address, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't listen to him when it comes to things on the cow side of things or business side of things because I really value his information. And I do think it's really important that you kind of compartmentalize things a little bit in the sense of don't take all advice from one mentor because chances are they don't know everything. There are people who know a lot, that's for sure. And I don't want to discredit that. But usually we all have the 1, 2, 3 things that we're really good at. That is who you need to be going to for the 1, 2, 3 things that you need to work on, and find an army of those people that you can go to for that advice, whether they're personal people or not.
Something that I think you do really well too is you seek knowledge outside of the ag and Western industry. So we are an ag and Western business. And I think an important thing, and there have been other guests on Leaders of the West that have kind of said the same thing, that they seek advice from outside of their respective industry too, because you gain so much more knowledge from outside that you can then bring to our industry and vice versa. So I think that's a really key piece to some of the mentors that you mentioned, that they're not necessarily ag and Western, professionals, but you have gained so much knowledge from them that you've been able to bring to our industry.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I cannot stress the importance of that enough. I have been able to learn so much from outside of our industry and bring that back in. But at the same time, it's also really important to have mentors within the industry that you're working in. If you aren't working in ag or Western, have mentors in the industries that you're in because they're going to know the little nuances. They're going to know the historical type things to ensure that you don't make mistakes maybe that have been made before, or they may have a better pulse on your audience that you're looking to get in front of, or all of those specific things. But it's just as important to have people on the outside who you get information from and then bring it back into your industry, because that difference in perspective is huge. And especially if you're surrounding yourself with people that are only in your sector of the industry, you're kind of putting yourself in a metaphorical box. And the idea is to get outside of your box, get outside of your comfort zone and learn new things and then bring that information back in, right? To widen your scope. And I have found that to be really, really valuable. A really easy way of doing that, though, again, I go back to this, guys, podcasts and books. Podcasts, for the most part, are free. Books, they're affordable. Or if you have Amazon Prime, a lot of them are free. So again, I cannot stress the importance enough of podcasts and books. That's a really easy way if you feel like you're a little bit unsure of how to find a good mentor outside of the industry. That's where I'd first start.
So you have a pretty varied pool of people you consider mentors, but what are some characteristics within those mentors that inspire you?
This is a tough one. I will say, though, think like quickly and broadly thinking about all of them. They're all good at what they do, so they are all successful, but they live out their mission, if you will. Like they have those very important qualities or characteristics, things that they're passionate about. And at the end of the day, they would put all of their success aside for those things. Or on the flip side, that is the thing that they're working for, and they're so passionate about it that they don't care necessarily about, the financial aspect because they have so much passion. And passion is one of those things that is incredibly important, especially now when it seems like burnout is something that is so prevalent for a lot of us. I really think that there can be a lot to say about finding that passion. And I know that, again, as I quickly think about all of the mentors that I have and their success levels, they're all very, very passionate. The other thing that I will say about them too is they're all hard workers, which kind of maybe challenges that burnout thing I talked about a minute ago, but they all show up every day, even when they don't want to. And they all work their tails off. But at the same time, they know when to sit back and relax and enjoy the ride and, take note of their successes. But every single one of them is a hard worker. And you can't get anywhere if you're not willing to work hard. And if you're not willing to show up every single day, even when you don't want to. And there are a pile of days that I don't necessarily want to show up, but I do it anyways because I know that's the right thing to do. And I can't tell you how much further ahead I am because I am willing to show up every day. And I definitely think that that's a key piece of the people that I look up to too.
Oh, wow. So you just hit on two great things that we're going to talk about. So I'm glad that you said those.
Hit me with them.
When you are a leader and an entrepreneur, you are also the motivator of the team to kind of, whether you want that title or not, you are. And you sometimes have to pull the team up by their bootstraps. You have to light the fire under their butts, but you also have to keep yourself motivated too, which I think can potentially be harder than motivating others. Sometimes it's harder to give ourselves that kick in the butt that we need than it is to other people sometimes. So how do you not only motivate a team or our team, but you also stay motivated yourself? Because let me just say, especially in the early days of the West, before I was even here, you really didn't have a team yet. And you were 6-7 months pregnant. So it had to have been hard to stay motivated towards the end goal on some days.
Oh, yeah, you are spot on about that. I will say though, our team makes it really easy. I have surrounded myself with the absolute best people, and you guys are all naturally motivated. I don't necessarily really ever have to worry about motivating you guys because you are there and ready. And it goes back to the idea of hiring the right people and the importance within that. As far as how I motivate myself, it really just goes back to showing up every day, even when you don't want to. There's this idea that you can outlast 50% of your competition if you just show up every day. I hate the word to use competition in there, but at the same time, we're going to leave it in there because that's what the saying is, right? But you can outlast 50% of your competition if you're just willing to show up. And I will say that I have seen a lot of small businesses start in life, and I have seen a lot of them quit in year 1, 2, and 3 because it's hard in those years. But when you get to year 4 and year 5 and year 6, once you've built that solid foundation of your business and you're really kind of working on that second story, it gets a lot easier. But so many people quit right before things. And I don't want to fool people into thinking the business is easy because it's not. But you're quitting right before things are about to get a little bit better. And so again, it just goes back to you've got to show up every day and you've got to work on things even when you don't want to. And, sometimes if I'm in a bad headspace, I go take myself for a walk or I go do something or, maybe I'll fold some laundry and then I come back in with a fresh mind and a new perspective. And then I spend a couple more hours on it. And, I might have to work a little bit later that night because I took some time in the middle of the day to get right with myself. But you can't quit, I guess. Maybe that's what it all comes back to is you can't quit. You've still got to keep going. So if you're in that hard spot, just keep going.
Oh, God. And like a theme I see within that topic so much is just consistency and staying consistent. And I'll try my hand at a Jessie Jarvis analogy here, but it's just like, working out. That's the easiest analogy to think of because at the beginning, it's going to be really hard, just like business. In the beginning, it's really, really hard. But the more you keep going, the more you continue to show up at the gym, the easier it gets, the more results you start to see. And I think that there's a great correlation between that and just like showing up in business. It's going to be hard, but it will get easier.
Oh, you are now the queen of analogies because yes, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, so you are one of, if not the most passionate person when it comes to the ag and Western industry to me. You are a true blue believer in these industries, what we do, who we are, our people, and land. I watched you one time. Actually, we were in Dallas. We weren't really even talking about the industry, but you were saying that you really love to take this one flight from Boise to DFW and you request a window seat because you love flying over your guys' ranch and seeing what you and your family have worked so hard for and accomplished. And you kind of got a little choked up about it. And I was standing there like, oh my gosh, that was probably not, I knew you were a passionate person about this industry and this business, but in that moment I was like, man, she really is like, she stands firm for what she believes in this industry. And you're lucky to have that passion. But I think that is not a type of passion that everyone has. So, consider yourself both blessed and cursed, right? Because I'm sure that passion is what keeps you up at night.
Oh, it totally is. And I wish that people could see me now because I totally do have tears in my eyes. Yes. So I will say I'm really lucky because of where Boise. So Boise is the airport that we always fly out of. And I'm typically going south or east, right? I'm going to go to Vegas, Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, Salt Lake, maybe. Like those are typically the places that we fly over. And every single one of those flight paths comes over our ranch. So when I'm leaving Boise, headed to somewhere, I always get a window seat on the right side of the plane. And when I'm coming back home into Boise, I always get a window seat on the left side of the plane. And I will say 8 times out of 10, that pilot, he must know that I'm back there because he always flies correctly. And I always do. I get to look at our ranch and, the public lands that we're able to graze. And I really think of how hard our family has worked, my parents and my grandparents and all of the sacrifices that they made. Maybe that goes back again a little bit to my motivation and just my passion for the industry is I think about all of the sacrifices people have made before me. If I think that life is hard for me, honestly, what a joke, right? My grandparents lived through the Great Depression and they bought our ranch in the early 1940s, which would have been on the tail end of the Great Depression. Those people actually had problems, right? Think about all the people, who have came before us when we had, if you wanted to go plow your field, you had to hook up a team and do it that way. Or if you wanted to build a road, you had to hook up a team. They had no technology. Their mail didn't come every day. All of these little things that we absolutely take for granted. And we have the audacity to say, man, life is so hard. We're faced with so many challenges. Like, guess what? Agriculture has never been easy, ever. And if you think like, oh, woe is me, I hate to tell you, but maybe you're in the wrong industry. Like you're going to have to toughen up because only the tough will survive in our industry. So going back to my passion for the industry, I am somebody who I feel like I'm equal parts past and future. I am so thankful to my family and all of the generations before me and all of the decisions that they made that, somehow landed me to where I am today. And I was born into the family that I was born into. And I feel like if I'm not aware of them, then I'm kind of doing them a disservice. But at the same time, I also don't want to be somebody who just lives in the past because there's nothing healthy about that. So I'm always somebody who is forward thinking and focused on what can I do to move the needle forward for the future of agriculture? What contributions can I make to ensure that this is around for my kids and their kids and their kids if they so choose to be involved in our industries? And having that mission and that drive and that passion for our industry absolutely fuels my fire. And it continues to make it really easy to show up every day. Again, even though I just said sometimes it's not easy to show up, right? It really is, just because I know that the people in our industry are worth fighting for, and I'm never going to not fight for them.
Ooh, I almost feel like we should just drop the mic on that. When we talk about passion, and obviously you have like such a clear passion and you have such like a clear motivation for what you do and why you do it. But I think that for some people, it does not come that easy. So like, what do you have any advice, or what advice would you give to those who might be in that phase of life of like, I'm searching for my passion, whether it's in their life or in their career?
Ooh, okay. So I just spoke with a group of college students last night and I gave them this advice. And honestly, it's the same advice that I would give people. Take out a piece of paper, write down the things that you like, the things that you enjoy, the things that you are passionate about. Write down on the opposite side, kind of like a pro-con list. What are the things you don't necessarily enjoy doing? And be real with yourself. Like, this is a time to get honest. Don't try to sugarcoat things. Don't pretend to be somebody you're not, because that's not actually your passion. That's their passion, and that's not going to work out for you long term. And the other thing that I will say in following your passion too is don't follow money. And what I mean by that is if you want a job just because it pays well, that's great in the short term, but long term, that's probably not going to make you happy. So really be focused on the long-term things of like, what do you enjoy doing? What are you passionate about? Money is one of those things that, man, for some people, a very, very small percentage of them, if that's the thing they chase, yes, it may work out and it may make them happy. But I think for the vast majority of us, that's not the case. But write it down. And I will tell you on that same token is you can make money at just about anything these days. You really can. And so if you figure out after you write all those things down, really, take time. And this is something that it's not necessarily going to come in an evening, right? It's going to come over weeks and months. But really figure out based on what you wrote down, what you're passionate about. And the other thing that's very important is to realize that your why is fluid. What my why was when I was 21 is very different than my why at 31. Yes, there are some key pieces that have been, consistent throughout that time, but things do change. So it's not like I wrote my passions down just like Jessie told me, and I am convicted to this for the rest of my life. No, life changes, things change, like your why, your passions, they're going to be fluid. There are a lot of them that, just like mine, agriculture being one of those, it's been present in my entire life. It is something that I am not ever leaving. That is one of those I know is not going away anytime soon, if ever. But it's really important to recognize that that's something that's going to be fluid. You're going to have to revisit it often, but you can, with work, figure out what you enjoy, what you're passionate about, and what your why is.
Do you think it's ever too late to pursue your passion or to find your passion?
Never. No, go on. And then once you figure it out, start today. Don't start tomorrow. Start today. It can be the littlest step, but you've got to start somewhere. It's going to be today. We're not making that excuse of, I'll do it tomorrow. No, that's a joke. Start today. You're going to be so proud of yourself. You're going to be so thankful if you start today.
That's huge, because I think so often we, at 18 feel like we should have our passion figured out when we're going to college and getting our degrees, but it's okay if it changes in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and we decide to like totally transition into something different.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I think you mentioned you also have some rapid fire questions for me.
Yep. And these are, I think, some things that, people really want to know about Jessie Jarvis here.
Okay, here we go, guys.
All right. So what is your go-to karaoke song?
A fun fact, I've never actually karaokeed in my entire life. But if I do, it's going to be Fancy by Reba McEntire.
All right. We're putting it on the calendar. We're doing an Of the West karaoke night, and we're going to watch Jessie sing.
Be there with your cameras and your earplugs.
Okay. What is one fashion trend you hope never comes back in style?
It's kind of in style now, and I'm just going to say it's not one that it's probably going to come back, but it's one that I am not into, nor will I ever be. Pants that aren't hemmed. Like, raw edges on long jeans. They end up looking dirty and ragged and frayed and gross, frankly. And I am not about that life. Maybe if you're talking about like a straight leg jean that's kind of cropped and it's unhemmed, that's fine because you're going to roll it up. But if you have a long jean that's going to drag the floor, touch the floor, and it's unhemmed, it's going to get dirty and gross, and it just doesn't look very put together. And I like to look put together. So unhemmed jeans, frayed jeans, that's my answer.
Okay, we're never going to see Jessie Jarvis in a pair of unfrayed jeans. Do you have a celebrity doppelganger?
Oh, okay. I personally don't see it, but I do often get told I looked like Carrie Underwood. I did also get chased down one time in Dallas, actually. I think I've told you this story before. But anyways, yes, Carrie Underwood. Although again, I don't see it.
Well, it's probably the legs. Jessie's legs and Carrie Underwood's legs. They're about the damn same, and it's unfair. So what is one podcast that you would love to be a guest on besides your own show that you are a guest on today?
Oh, Alexa Von Tobel's Inc. The Founders Project. I had a chance in the summer of 2023 to sit down with Alexa. She is somebody who is an absolute genius. She founded a company called LearnVest and then sold that for an astronomical amount of money. And now she is actually somebody who she has a investor capital firm and they invest in other businesses. But she has a podcast. It's called Inc. The Founders Project with Inc. magazine. And she talks to founders of different companies. And it's a podcast that I really enjoy listening to as a founder myself. So it would be an honor for sure to be a guest on that.
Putting that on the vision board. Lastly, what is your favorite thing about yourself?
I can't talk about myself.
I'm forcing you to right now. This is Jessie's biggest pitfall. She doesn't like to talk about herself, so I'm forcing her to.
I guess I said this earlier and I'm gonna fall back on it. I'm a pretty good judge of character and people. And I don't necessarily know how that is or why that is. Because again, I'm willing to give my trust, which is usually kind of how you get in those situations, right? But I just kind of have a knack for people and I'm very observant. And so that definitely helps me in that. But yeah, I'm going to say my ability to judge character and people. And I don't want to say judge, that maybe comes off harsh, but just, people with ulterior motives or people who are out to, screw you in some way. I usually have a pretty good radar on that.
Totally. I love it. Well, Jessie, I am going to hand the reins back over to you. It's been an honor to get to interview the one and only.
Oh, well, thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate that. I know this is kind of a different style of episode, so I can't imagine that we're going to do these very often, but if you enjoyed it, definitely let us know. And if you thought it was terrible, let us know that too, I suppose, and then we'll never do it again. But Sarah, I just so appreciate you. And I am so thankful for you. And I will tell you that Of the West would not be where we are today without you as part of our team and our entire team. So I am just so grateful and thankful for all of you guys and our listeners as well. So thank you guys for listening. As always, we'll be back here next week.
If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.